Good afternoon. I'm Chloe Rigby, editor of InternetRetailing.net, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar, Customer Loyalty versus Customer Retention in association with Expedia. Over the next hour, we'll be hearing from Nicola Cottrell from Sofology, from Jamie O'Gorman and Robert Heger of Expedia, as they look at what it takes to foster customer loyalty. So, let me introduce you to our speakers today. Nicola Cottrell is the Head of Customer Relationship Management at Sofology. She's worked in e-commerce for more than 10 years, running CRM for companies such as the Everton Football Club, On the Beach and Phones for You. Nicola's main focus at Sofology has been developing the customer journey and helping customers feel at home on a sofa that they love. Jamie O'Gorman is Director of Client Services at Expedia, where he focuses on assisting clients on how to get the most value out of the platform. Jamie has more than 10 years experience working on the client side of e-commerce, working with 3M, Studio Moderna, Stillago, and most recently Missguided. 2 years ago, he moved to the other side, joining Expedia to help other companies grow. Robert Heger is the inbound content specialist at Expedia, where he spends much of his time researching and writing to create Expedia's articles and ebooks. Robert's previous experience revolved around project management, business strategy, and innovation. And with Expedia, Robert's been leveraging his talents for the world of e-commerce. Now let's have a quick look at the agenda for today's webinar. First of all, we'll be talking about the relationship between retention and loyalty, moving on to how to build a better shopping experience, and then looking at how to provide a consistent customer experience before calling on Nicola from Sofology to talk about real-world strategies and a case study. At the end of today's webinar, we'll move into a Q&A session, so let me explain now how to ask any questions that you may have. On the control panel on your screen, you'll see a chat box. If you send your question through that, we'll aim to get to as many questions as we can today. The session is recorded, so I'd remind you too that after the webinar finishes, we'll be sending out an email with a link so you can watch it again whenever is convenient for you. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome our first speaker today, Robert Heger, Inbound Content Specialist at Expedia. Robert, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks a lot, Chloe. So let's get started on the right foot. Retention does not equal loyalty. A retained customer is one that continues to buy from your brand. A loyal customer prefers to buy from your brand. They seek you out. They are your brand ambassador. Now, you can get people to come back and purchase from you again with like a discount code, for example, thereby retaining them. But retention is a short-term strategy. It feeds into loyalty, which is a long-term strategy, where there's almost an emotional connection between the brand and the buyer. Now, I think we can all agree that retention is important. 90% of companies believe that customer retention is a priority. Now, retention is a great place to start, but as I mentioned, loyalty is the next step. And the real question is, how do brands create that emotional connection and develop these loyal brand ambassadors? And the secret sauce is customer experience. So while 90% believe retention is a priority, only 50% budgeted for the customer experience. Here we start to see a disconnect. Now, from our experience, the majority of our customers focus less than 20% of their marketing budget towards improving the loyalty of their existing customers. Now, I think this is a good time to ask our audience about their focus. Chloe, feel free to run the first poll.
Thanks, Robert. You'll see on your screen now, the question is, what percentage of your company budget is allocated for fostering loyalty? And there are 5 possible questions, 5 possible answers rather. We don't budget for that at all. Less than 10% of the company budget is allocated for loyalty, less than 20%, over 20%, or over 30%. I'll just give you a moment or two more to answer that question before I close the poll and share the responses. So now I'm going to close the poll and you'll be able to see the results come up on your screen. Robert, so 33% say they don't budget for that at all. 36% say it's less than 10%. 17% say it's less than 20%. 3% say they budget more than 20%. And 11% are committing more than 30%. Any thoughts on that before I hide the results?
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I guess we have the right audience here.
That's great. I'll shut that poll down for you now.
Thanks a lot, Chloe. So let's continue with what is customer loyalty? Think of it as the measure of the likelihood that a customer purchases from you again without hesitation. Do customers remember that they purchased from you? Do they remember your brand? Do they recommend you to friends and family? The three companies here, Amazon, Apple, and Netflix, are known for their loyal customers. But how do they do it? What sets them apart? They are constantly striving to improve their customer experience, making it faster, easier, more consistent, and more convenient. Netflix, for example, knows their customer have a 90-second attention span. Since a picture is worth 1,000 words, they improve their product by A/B testing their movie artworks. So while I get a Carrie Fisher from Princess Leia, my wife gets a very handsome Chewbacca. But what Netflix is doing here, it's testing their way to a better product and a better customer experience for their subscribers. So where does the disconnect come from? Here we have two sides of the story. On the left, we have what marketers believe creates customer experience and loyalty. And on the right is what actually customers want from their brands. Now we can agree with the quality of product and service and the value for their money, but this isn't something we're going to be talking about here today. What we're going to be talking about is the convenient buying process and the consistent overall experience, since this is what marketers should be focusing on. So let's hand over the mic to Jamie O'Gorman to take a closer look at how you can offer both of these to your customers and start increasing loyalty today. Jamie?
Thanks, Robert. So what I'm going to talk about today is about building better shopping experience. It's one of the things that Robert just mentioned is a key to building loyalty with customers. The first thing that a lot of marketers do when they talk about how can we build a better shopping experience is they look at recommendations. Very often, a lot of the companies that we work with have already tried or experimented with recommendations. And there's one key area that typically is not something that companies have explored. It's very often price sensitivity. So a lot of companies will try categories and based on previous purchases and all of these kind of things. But if a customer's purchased jeans or t-shirts or whatever, but their price purchase range is very typically 30 to 40 pounds, they're very unlikely in general, if that's a consistent experience, to then purchase something of 100 or plus. So what you actually have to also take into account when you're giving recommendations is this price point. One of the great tricks or tips that we've found when actually looking at price sensitivity and trying to move customers up the actual value chain to potentially purchase more, let's say, higher value items going forward, is actually to look at things like when we have a discount or a sale running, to bring those items into the customer's recommendation pool. By doing that, the price point is still relevant for the customer because it's between that 30 and 40 pounds. However, what they're getting is a higher perceived value to that customer. And what you might find is that customer likes it, they feel that additional value, and the next time they come back, they may actually look at that as a new price point for them that they can accept. Again, what you're doing is increasing the perceived value to your customers. Therefore, you're building some first steps towards loyalty because you're broadening your potential pool of relevant products to that customer. Decision anxiety. As a marketer, this is something that I think very often that we fall down on. I'm certainly guilty of it, of someone who's done e-commerce and marketing for 10 years. And there's a very famous experiment which was run in 2000 by Columbia and Stanford, and it was called the Jam Experiment. And what they did, they set up a market stall on 2 separate weekends. Everything was the same apart from one thing. The first weekend, they sold 24 different types of jam. The second weekend, same stall, same location, same time, they sold 6. Guess which stall made the most money? And it was 6. As marketers, we're very often trying to get every message towards our customers as possible. We want to tell them about these fantastic offers, all the great products, what's new, what's running out of stock, all these great things that are going on. And actually, by doing it too much, you can sometimes overwhelm a customer and build a barrier and stop that customer making a decision because there's simply too many things to think about. I think I would recommend anyone to take a look at their marketing communications or their website and try and identify if there are any times when you're maybe doing this. Now I'm going to talk about some specific examples on the website itself. Adding continuity to visits. This is a great thing that works for a lot of our customers, and it's particularly relevant when we talk about loyalty. So if a customer is, for example, looking to purchase a higher value item, typically what we would look at here is something like electronics, a laptop or a TV or something like that. High ticket item, something that's not an impulse purchase. Very often they will come to the website several times before they make that purchase. Now we talk about high value items, but it works for lots of different industries, fashion. So do I really want to have that dress? Maybe I'm looking already 6-8 weeks before the actual event. I will keep coming back. And if you can actually build continuity and recognize that that customer has already visited your website, and based on the type of products that you can make that leap, that probably this person's browsing and coming back and checking, you can actually bring that to the forefront of the customer's journey and tell them, we know that you're considering this. Why not take a shortcut to this? If it's not relevant to them, they'll ignore it. If it's relevant to them, you create a better experience for that customer and you shorten that journey to reach the point where they're trying to reach. Homepage recommendations. What's the most common tactic? Bestsellers. Every company that we've worked with starts with bestsellers, and it's fantastic for a new customer coming to your website for the first time. Let's show the best of what we've got in the store. However, as you build an understanding of your customer, those bestsellers you might find are not relevant to that customer. They might actually be more interested in finding those hidden gems, and you can not just tailor the actual images and the products you're servicing, but also the communication style. So tell them that this is something that's a unique thing. Maybe only 3 people bought this. It might sound counterintuitive to say that, okay, there's not hundreds and hundreds of people interested in this, but for some people, that's what's important. They want to stand out. And this is particularly relevant when you look at something like fashion. Sometimes people want to fit in with the crowd. Sometimes people want to stand out for the crowd. It's important to personalize it. Upsells. So this is an interesting tactic and it can go either way, but absolutely is recommended to test it. And if it's done in the right way, it can really improve the customer experience. So if you're a customer and you're going through the checkout process, and you get to the point where it's asking you about shipping options. Sometimes for a lot of companies, there is a minimum purchase requirement, so over £60 and you will get free shipping. Otherwise, it's £5. Sometimes that really is a psychological barrier for some people. Now, actually, by adding the look items within the checkout, you're not only potentially increasing your average order value, but you're actually also, if it's linked to that barrier, which is potentially a shopping limit for purchase, so over £60, and it will take them over that, well, fantastic. I'm going to buy something for an additional £15, and actually I'll save £5 on the shipping. So the value to me is £15. However, I feel like I've paid £10 and great, you've increased the average basket value and the customer's happy because they feel that they got a deal. It's a great experience for the customer. on exit intent banners. So here is something that's a little bit controversial for marketers. Is it too disruptive or is it okay to try? I would say, again, let's try it. And it's important here to focus on what is the barrier to a customer leaving a website. So how does this work? A customer is shopping, browsing for a certain period of time. And what we can detect is that their mouse is moving in a certain direction. We can recognize that kind of pattern of behavior because we track several thousand or hundreds of thousands of other users. So we can recognize that behavior and we can actually interrupt that flow. And we can say to that customer, okay, you're leaving. Why are you leaving? Now let's look at, again, the shopping cart, right? This is where every marketer hates that customer to leave. We've got them so far down that journey and we're so close to getting a conversion and making that a customer, or working again with a customer who we've known from the past. It might be shipping, for example. So if they stopped on the shipping page, let's tell them, okay, if you buy another item, here's a discount. Or if you, we know that this is your third purchase, you know what? This time shipping is on us. You can build these very specific and personalized and tailored offers to those customers. If it's a customer who's there for the first time, why not let's start a relationship with that customer? If they're leaving the website, tell them, okay, we hope you found something interesting in our website. Here's the items that you're browsing. But by the way, maybe we can send these to you in an email. What that creates is an opportunity to capture an email address. So you're building a relationship with that customer, and you're already personalizing and tailoring that first set of content to that customer by sending them products which are relevant to them. Again, it's about starting that loyalty journey with the customer. And this one is a little bit creative, and it's certainly something that's a trend that we're seeing this year, but I believe that will certainly grow within the next few years. The idea behind this is if a customer can picture themselves using the product, they're significantly more likely to identify with that product and potentially that brand. And in theory, it should also be more likely to make a purchase. The one on the right hand side here, this is actually Sephora. So it's a makeup brand. What you can do is upload an image of your face. We tried my face there, it wasn't so successful, so we've chosen this one instead. But you can actually see how that actual makeup item would look on you. You can share it with friends, you can ask for feedback. All of a sudden, you're building an experience which is beyond just actually buying a lipstick online. You're sharing it with people, you're actually imagining yourself already in that item. So we've talked about building a better customer experience and a better shopping experience. Now let's focus on building a consistent shopping experience, because that was the second point that Robert touched on earlier on. So one of the challenges that a lot of companies have that we talk to is, how do I connect online and offline data? It's a pain. It can be very difficult, but there are some simple tactics to actually do this. But here we're talking about omnichannel. More than half of companies surveyed in the UK last year actually have more than 8 channels currently. If you think about your own company and you start to count them up, social, so Instagram, Facebook, you've got email, you've got the website, they really add up. So it's something that you have to keep in mind. Now, one of the companies that we worked in, we talk about building that connection between online and offline and it being a challenge, is actually a very famous high street store. It's a gifting store. About 90% of their revenue actually is generated offline. What they were trying to do is build an online presence. Now, as a gifting company, it's extremely seasonal. Very often they found that people would come to their store once, they would make a purchase, usually because they were just walking past the store, and they would never see that customer again. And it was very hard to build any relationship or any loyalty with that customer. So what did they do? It was a very simple tactic. In the store, when the customer made a purchase, they gave them a scratch card. The scratch card told them to go to the website, they can enter a code and find out what they want. Of course, when they went to the website, they enter their code, they should provide an email address so they can get their prize into their inbox. And they asked, do you want to sign up for our newsletter? And we'll tell you the next time, we'll send you a reminder about this anniversary for this gift or whatever it is. But they used it as a method to actually start that online relationship with that customer. What does it mean for that company? It means all of a sudden I've connected an offline purchase with an online cookie and an email address, and all of a sudden I have 3 channels that I've connected with that customer across. So I think it would be interesting at this point to run another poll, and I'm going to pass this over to Chloe again, who's going to get that up for us.
That's great. So I'm just launching our second poll. On your screen now, you'll be able to see, is your company able to seamlessly connect the online and offline customer experience? 3 possible answers: yes, no, or sort of. So I'll give you a moment more just to answer that question if you'd like to. And now I'm going to close the poll and share the answers with you. As you can see, 17% said yes, they were able to connect online and offline. 43% said no, and 40% were between the two, sort of. Jamie, back to you.
So I think we've got a lot of honest people here. Actually, these results are very typical. We look at an 80-20 rule of 20% people really feel that, yes, we have it down. There's always a couple of minor things where potentially you can improve, but of course, if you feel as a company you've nailed that, and usually you can tell quite quickly, then that's fantastic. But 80%, it's very common amongst our clients that they don't have that yet. And that's why we work with a lot of the businesses we do. All right, so we talked about engaging and getting people to engage across omni-channel and different channels with a company. Now I'm going to talk about actually rewarding customers for engaging through those channels. One of the companies I always talk about here, and for all of their, the problems of their business or the benefits of their business, I'm not here to talk about this, but I think their loyalty program, they absolutely nailed it. And it's the Hilton Group. And the reason I talk about them is because personally, I'm actually using their reward program. As a marketer, I like to prod and poke every marketing tactic and loyalty program that I see. I download the app and very few stay with me. And this one did. Why did it work? So I stayed in a hotel, in the elevators. So this is my first-hand experience with the company. They said, if you sign up for our loyalty program, you can get an early check-in the next time you stay, and you can stay an extra hour in bed. Okay, I can download the app. I have nothing to lose. And I also get to check in ahead of time. Fantastic, why not? So I tried it. And then what I found was a little bit more information. Okay, if I stay more often, I start to build up, and they gamified it quite well, to first of all the silver level, and then a gold level, and then a diamond level. And in each of these levels, I can get additional rewards. Now, what they did really well was, first of all, make that initial contact. So now they have a marketing channel for me. And what they gave me was something that is not really a cost to them as a company, but has a high perceived value for me. If I can stay in bed an extra hour, fantastic. If I can check in early, fantastic. And at each level, they increase that. And at the top level, all of a sudden, I have free upgrades. I have access to a lounge. I can stay in my room not till 12 o'clock, but actually till 5 or 6 o'clock if it makes sense. I get free bottles of water. I get free breakfast. What that does is it actually makes it very difficult for me to go to another company. If I stay now in a rival hotel, I lose all of those benefits. So my experience is actually worse whenever I actually engage with another company. And you can be sure that I'm recommended this to all of my colleagues. I'm recommending to people now. So of course, this is loyalty, right? I have an emotional connection with that brand because I feel good and I feel great whenever I'm using it. And the benefits really are valuable to me. And actually the cost to them as a business is quite small. They're not talking about discounts. They're talking about improving the experience as you're actually engaging with the brand. And that's the dream. Discounts are an easy thing to give away, but if you can create that same feeling that I've got a real benefit with this company rather than just a discount, then you've done a great job as a marketer. And finally, tailored communications. So I think most people here will know you shouldn't spam the same advert across channels. However, we are guilty of it sometimes. And here the key is to focus on the relevant with the relevant message. We have one of our customers who recently launched a new brand within the US market. What they did is they launched through Instagram. It was relevant for their target base, and they generated millions of page hits. It was a fantastic influencer campaign, and it worked really well. And they drove loads of traffic to the website. Very successful. And people actually added items to the cart. So it was a makeup, relatively low value item. but it was makeup brand. And they got to the checkout and they had, I believe, more than an 80% dropout within the checkout, which is horrible. As I said before, this is the worst thing possible for a marketer. I've done everything possible to get them to that stage, and then they drop out. So what did they do? They looked at the channels. So, okay, we're driving the traffic. The customer's going to the checkout. So what are we missing? And what was missing is that Instagram is obviously a very visual channel. So you don't give a lot of information. And if you push someone straight to the checkout, again, and straight to the shipping information, but what they were missing was the details of the product. What's it made of? What's the size? How should I use it? How does it look? So they built lots of revenue and lots of traffic to the checkout, but they actually didn't focus on originally what the customer needed to know before they made that purchase. So what they did, again, very counterintuitive, they put an additional step into the process. And their checkout dropout rate, it's about a quarter of what it was before. So it really worked because the message was relevant and well-timed and appropriate to the channel and that customer at the moment. So don't be scared to put those additional steps in if it makes sense for your customer. The key, look at what those steps are, what matters for that customer in that channel. So I think that's everything from my side, and I'm going to hand over to Nicola now, who's going to take us through some things from her side.
Thanks, Jamie. So I'm Nicola Cottrell. I'm head of CRM at Sofology, and I've been working with Exponio since about August last year. As Chloe said earlier, I've worked in e-commerce for over 10 years now, and then specialising in email marketing and CRM for the last 8 years, really. But I've also had experience in the wider marketing roles throughout my career as well. Having gone through a number of platform migrations with varying levels of success, in all honesty, which I think happens to everybody, it has given me an invaluable understanding about the strategic importance of choosing the right customer data platform, such as Exponio, from both a marketing and operational perspective, as CRM covers all touch points with a customer. As we all know, our ability to do our job is only as good as the data we have. But if that data we have isn't organised in the correct way and the platform doesn't allow have the flexibility that a business needs, then having the right data becomes irrelevant. And in my opinion, this can be the main source of frustration and concern if anybody's undertaking a project of this magnitude. And that's really where Exponio came in, because for once there was a platform available that clearly demonstrated not only how I could deliver the various campaign activity and insight, etc., and everything that kind of to be expected, but it also showed, even at the initial demonstration, that the level of flexibility in the platform was outstanding. So any of my initial concerns about needing to specify every single requirement within our scope, it wasn't really necessary, as I could pretty much work without restraints, and providing that I had the right data, organisers, events and attributes within Exponio going into Exponio from our systems. But this was a total breath of fresh air and something that I've been waiting for a long time to become available. And it was kind of sort of like releasing the stabilisers in learning to ride a bike. So a bit about Sofology. We're the largest UK sofa specialist retailer, and we've been part of the DFS group since 2017. We're a collective of brands including DFS, Dwell and Sofa Workshop, so we've got quite a coverage there, and we make up over 50% of the upholstery category traffic. Until DFS bought us, Sofology was run quite differently, as it was a family business, and that started in 1974. So we've had quite a lot of changes over, since October last year, when Sally Hobson, our current CEO, joined us. And even though Sofology operationally has been going for a number of years, it's had quite a few brand changes. So the brand is relatively young, it's only 3 years old. So that's where customer loyalty and how we treat our customers is particularly important for us. Sofology's mission statement comes from a customer survey that we conducted at brand inception, where we found that 40% of sofa owners surveyed had actually bought the wrong sofa and had buyer's remorse. So therefore, our mission statement is simple. We want to leave every customer feeling at home on a sofa they love. And at Sofology, we do this by being different from our competitors. So we don't drive sales through offers, deadlines or commission, but rather we focus on the importance in helping a customer to make the right choice for them, their home and their family. So with Exponio, it was the perfect partnership. So to set the stage for success, we obviously had some challenges to overcome. So now that we've migrated to Exponia, we've got the right partner to build a successful customer journey, but we're not going to be able to do anything if we can't gather and manage consent of our customers. Volumes of our subscribed database dropped quite significantly after GDPR, but that kind of was a lot of businesses were in a similar situation. But it didn't necessarily mean that we suffered from a revenue generation perspective at all. From my opinion, we just got more accurate information on how our campaigns were performing. For the consent issue, we tackled that by building a bespoke customer preference centre that feeds directly into Exponia with specific events tailored towards our requirements, and that allows customers to set and change their marketing preference based both on the type of marketing they want to receive and the channel. We make this a clear and transparent process by also sending a customer a confirmation of their email at when they change their preferences as well. As a result of this, we've seen that our unsubscribe rate has actually dropped to an all-time low, and our email metrics such as opens and clicks and conversions have all improved. Our customer journey makes the most of legitimate interest, as most of our leads are actually collected in store and with what we call a sophologist, so that's our store staff. We also have the added opportunity of being able to explain to customers that they will receive these helpful reminders about items that they've shortlisted. We call that adding to favourites, or things that they've added to their basket. These will then later appear in their My Sofology account, so they can review them, and if they choose not to purchase today in store, they can simply go back into the My Sofology account, they can pick up where they left off and complete it at the comfort of their own home with another decision maker, over the phone, or they can come back into store. And then one of the key reasons that started our journey to move to Exponia was because our existing platform was so inaccurate at matching customers' online behaviour when they went in store with their offline behaviour. So I'm really happy to report that we've actually seen a significantly increased match through the use of an internal GUI that we've generated and Exponia's cookie tracking as well. Integrating data silos is pretty self-explanatory, as having a single customer view is imperative for us to be able to talk to the customer with specific relevancy. But that the increased level of personalisation and that targeting means that we can give them a much more consistent representation of our brand, leading to success. And then around creating this customer journey, so as much as possible, we try to replicate the in-store experience by offering help to our customers whilst they're considering their purchase. We remind them of the sofa ranges that they've indicated a preference for, and we also use the platform to recommend similar products to them as well, kind of emulating that conversation that somebody has with a sophologist in store as much as possible on the web, which wasn't possible before we moved to Exponia. We also make the customers' choices available to them in their My Sofology account, so they have an easy reference point prior to completing their purchase. Buying a sofa is a massive consideration and goes back to our mission statement. So this serves us really well from a campaign perspective, as everything's fully embedded. It creates trust and transparency between us and our customers, and it's embedded in both our online journey and offline journeys as well. So consistency across channel is obviously really important for us too. And of course, we can't replicate the in-store experience exactly, but what we can certainly aim to complement it as much as possible is by doing a clear, relevant and personalised experience that is an extension of the high level of service that they've received in store. Adding layers of personalisation is best demonstrated by how we tackle one of our big challenges in facing the opening of new stores. Our advertising is nationwide. Our website undoubtedly serves the whole of the UK. However, we are more prominent in the north of the UK than the south. So before we worked with Exponia, our old platform only gave us very minimal customer data really, and it was largely deemed inaccurate on the geolocation. And it meant that with previous store openings, we often had to spend a significant amount of marketing budget to purchase data, which we all know, understandably, doesn't give a very high return on investment and not as high as harvesting and generating your own data does. But with the use of Exponia's geo-targeting functionality, we're already seeing the benefits in our media plans for new store openings this year. And we can already see a significant number of customers that are already looking in that area. Some are known to us and some have already created a Sofology account, but they don't have a store at the moment in their area. So we can easily serve them the campaigns as kind of be expected. But also now we have the ability to combine the geo-targeting layer within Exponia's platform with the experiments layer, which is a web personalization piece, to be able to embed a banner into the website that will recognize the customer's location and serve them this personalized banner to show them that a new store is available in their area, drawing the attention to the new store, and then they can obviously go in and visit them. We know that this will save us a significant marketing spend whilst we're also expanding our reach of customers, and it also increases our known number of customers and that database size as well. So it leads to more sales and a more successful store opening at a much lower cost as well. And that's really the power of Exponia, to be honest. It's the different smart elements of the tool and its flexibility in combining them to get a really bespoke solution. And I don't think there's one scenario that we've kind of come up with yet that we've not been able to find a solution for, which gives me great confidence as a project sponsor, because at the end of the day, suggesting, championing, and then actually going through the migration of such a significant business tool can be considered such a stressful and risky task. I could see the potential of Exponia from day one. It was like my eyes lit up, and then previous headaches were all relieved. It's kind of every feature was revealed to us within the demo. You just go on to the next one. So how Sofology created loyal customers. So the first point is about being transparent and creating trust between brand and customer. So we have a conversation with our customers that is transparent and consistent, and no matter where the customer chooses to interact with us, it's the same. It's essential that this is across all of our channels, and we know from a recent survey conducted that being relevant and consistent with our customers across communications improves the perception of our brand so much that 48% are more likely to recommend us to their friends and family. Definitely considering that we're a relatively new brand to them as well. We've done the job in the brand awareness, but we need to make sure that we're considered purchase the next time that they come to purchase a sofa. Secondly, so for incentivizing customers to give you the data, we've got the usual kind of competition mechanisms that you would expect. We mainly do these across our social channels and our blog, which is called Sofological. But what we're really interested in at Sofology is being able to create a data value exchange that enhances the customer's experience with Sofology, and it distinguishes us from our competitors, aligning with our brand mission and then adding value to the business with something that is more indicative of a customer's propensity to purchase with us than the standard lead generation data capture points. One example I want to just go through in detail is about Sofology offering free Wi-Fi to our customers in our stores. We've undertaken a really exciting trial where we've offered free Wi-Fi to everybody in store, but customers have to create a simple login and provide us with some personally identifiable data. So far we've seen a 2.8% connection rate without really doing too much promotional from a promotional perspective. There's been 4 main benefits of the project, which has meant that we're actually going to roll this out to the rest of our stores. So number one, we've got thousands of visitors into our store each month with a conversion rate of around 12%. And if we offer free Wi-Fi and say 5% of these people connect, which I certainly think is achievable, we're actually essentially making our marketing spend work more efficiently for us just by having that simple integration. And because we have a higher average order value, kind of in comparison to a lot of retail estates, we can make a big shift in revenue without needing huge increases in the number of units that we sell. So this really helps the internal business case. Secondly, our trial showed that actually 75% of people that connected were not already known to us. So we're therefore incrementally growing our customer base, reaching new people that we would not have had the opportunity to talk to on a personalised level before. Conversely, the 25% that were identified in our database when they connected, because we already had their details from their online behaviour and the improved matching of the online and offline behaviour through the Exponia platform, we could then create an additional level of detail to their record within our customer base by recording simply that the store that they were in, let alone when they were in there and everything else that kind of goes along with that. And then lastly, there's also a huge benefit to having this insight. So the more customer data we have, obviously the more we can understand about our customers and their demographic, further enhancing our media spend and our marketing plans. But we can also use this information to define our business metrics and get a much more detailed understanding of the traffic that visits our store, such as new versus returning customers, where they are in their purchasing journey, any repeated visits, how long a customer spends in store, so their dwell time, and a more accurate definition of true conversion for us. The other benefit of this all is that the data will be passed to Exponia within a real-time bespoke integration. So having data at our fingertips that we never previously had helps us talk to that customer from a much more personalised level, create loyalty, it's relevant to them, etc. And the third point is pretty self-explanatory again, but it's unifying and utilising all of the customer data points that we have using the Exponia's integrations. By having all of our data in the one place, it means we can have much more control over the conversation we have with the customer across all the channels that we operate in. Point 4, so it's really important for us to have a clear brand positioning and customer journeys. Loyalty is created when a brand is clear and consistent. It's not something we have a metric necessarily to report on at the moment, but in time, as we establish the understanding of our lifetime value of our customers, we'll be able to measure on this and obviously hopefully improve on it. Point 5, so we create loyalty by being present where our customers are and using personalisation to be relevant to them and the stage of the customer journey that they are at with us. We're unlike other sofa brands in that we don't have sales or discounts, just a clearance function that sort of handles refurbishments from customers. So having a consistent pricing and messaging strategy across all of our channels, where all of our customers are, is one of our brand pillars that strengthens our brand positioning. And then lastly, understanding the customer with extensive NPS surveys. So at Sofology, we've actually got 7 different customer surveys that include NPS measurements, and they're served at different key points of the customer journey that covers it from both a service perspective and a product as well. So we have things like when they've placed an order, when they've accepted the delivery, post customer service interactions, and if there's any complaints, we measure how that's been handled as well, product satisfaction, and then we also have a later measurement of customer satisfaction 18 months after their purchase. So it's really important for us to understand them as a customer when they only repurchase on like an average of every 6 years. It can be quite specific to our industry, because I know most people have like repeat purchases a lot quicker, but that's why kind of these NPS measurements are so much more important to us, and that feedback is just invaluable to us as a business because it helps us either validate or dismiss opinions, quantify them. It helps make decisions quicker and a lot easier to have that conversation, and it also enables us to base these decisions on facts rather than an ego. And then through the link through Exponia and the additional customer information that's available to us with just a few clicks, we're also able to quantify the impact of that potential business change by establishing the facts, relating that to the number of customers that we have, so on and so forth. And then finally, we can monitor and measure the impact of any of these changes are made, as well as the usual testing that goes on with changes to help us get it right the first time.
Okay. Hey, Nicola, thank you very much for that. It's always great to hear an insight from a customer really using the platform and gaining insight to what you guys are doing as a CRM team. I think there was some great insights there. I believe now, Chloe, we're going to open up the floor for a Q&A, so I'll hand it back over to you. I just wanted to, before we do that, say thank you to everyone for joining, and especially thank you to the guys who were speaking today. I hope there was some useful content for everyone. And as I said, over to you, Chloe, and I think we'll open up for some questions.
That's great. Well, thank you for a really informative session that I'm sure people will have learned a lot from and got lots of insights from. Before we start in on our Q&A session, a quick reminder to anyone else who has a question on how to ask it. On the control panel on your screen, you'll see a chat box. Write your question there and press send. And do mark it if your question is directed to one person in particular, and we will aim to get to as many questions as we can today. So the first question, I think for you first, maybe Jamie, why is loyalty suddenly so important? Has it always been like this, or is this a new development?
Well, I was actually looking at some statistics a few weeks ago when I was having a chat with our CEO about the future of the business and so we were setting up. We were looking at growth rates of e-commerce in general. So in 2010, it was around 30% annual growth of e-commerce. By last year, that was around 14%. So already within just a few years, the growth rates have started to slow dramatically. The prediction is actually by 2025, the annual growth rates of e-commerce is going to be around 3%. So the growth isn't there to sustain businesses just through acquisition. This is why loyalty is becoming increasingly common now. It's a real focus for business because there's just not as many customers to go after.
Can I just add to that as well? I think that's a great point that you make. But from my perspective, I also look after the P&L budgets of our marketing spend of a whole as well. So I think because of kind of like the development in the platforms and everything and the number of different channels that we can advertise on, we can also see that much more easily that you're paying for returning customers as well, when we don't need to be. If you've got a well-established CRM program with them, you should be able, and you've got contact details for that customer, you really shouldn't be paying twice to acquire that customer. And I think now, because of the platforms such as Exponia, it's much more easy to be able to see that, and it's the quickest way of kind of like getting a more effective marketing spend.
That's great. Thank you both for your answers. We've got a couple of questions that cover similar areas. I'll ask them both, and then maybe I can ask you both to answer. In terms of improving the customer experience, you gave a lot of different strategies, but where should I start? And the related question on that is, what's your best advice for a company starting a loyalty program? Maybe Nicola, you could start us off on this one.
Yeah, sure. So in relation to the customer experience piece and where's the best place to start, I would say understand where you're going to make the biggest impact. Definitely, it usually comes from problems, unfortunately, and it can also be survey. So that can be asking your customers, get some quantifiable data so that you can measure the success as well, and see the difference that you're making, and just choose one thing or a couple of things that say you think are going to make the biggest difference.
That's great, thank you. And Jamie?
Yeah, from my side, what I always encourage people to do is go through their own experience with the company. Often you find yourself in a business and you don't actually very often go through as a customer. What I tend to do is actually ask friends or people outside of my network who would not normally be a customer of a brand, go and make a purchase, see how your interaction is with that brand, and you get real world feedback. But to echo what Nicola was saying there, it's about identifying where are those pain points. This is where you can add the most impact first. So understand that full journey, understand where you're failing. And to echo one of the points on Nicola's final slide, ensure that your brand promise, you're clear what it is and what you stand for as a company, and make sure that that's repeated throughout that customer process. It's about consistency, making sure that you're making the feeling that it feels like the same company in each of the steps. That I guess is the ultimate goal. And then all of these tips and tricks we talked about before, that sort of is the next step once you understand what that journey looks like.
That's so true, Jamie, because also kind of having that clear goal between everybody who works in the same business. If you're all aiming for the same goal, it's much easier to kind of get over any barriers to change or resistance to change, because it could be delivery drivers going to have to, go through a little process to know that everything's gone all right with that delivery, but they could see that as a pain point. But if that's actually going to deliver more value to the business, it's, people could get a better bonus, for example. So having that one consolidated mission statement that everything combines to and reaches for, it really, really helps kind of focus and get through any barriers to change.
That's great. That's really useful advice. A couple of people have asked if we are sharing if we're able to share the slides afterwards. Everybody who signs up for the webinar does get sent a link so that they can watch the webinar again. I'll also see if sharing the slides separately is an option as well, and we will send them on if we can. Next question. Jamie, possibly one for you. What is your IT and DevOps team like in terms of integration? Do you have a dedicated resource?
Sure. So we approach it in a few different ways depending on the client. But to answer the question first, yes, we have a dedicated integration team which sits under our client services division. So that would be under my team. But it depends really on the client. So a lot of companies have in-house IT teams, and they will do a lot of the work themselves, so we can provide training. Or alternatively, if a company needs that support, we have a team which is dedicated to actually onboarding clients as well. What we strive for as part of the onboarding is that once you reach the end of the integration period and the onboarding, the company who's bringing the platform in, they should be able to use the platform themselves. Like we don't want to rely on always being there to answer questions. Of course we are, but ultimately our goal is to make sure that people can use the platform and that it's set up in a way that allows the company to deliver on the use cases that they set up. So with Sofology, we sat down at the beginning, we set a list of things that they wanted to achieve, we mapped them out, and we supported them through that integration. But I'm sure that Nicola will be able to give some insights on how that works from the ground.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jamie. So from our perspective, I think we were quite unusual for one of Exponia's customers because we wanted to be involved at a granular level to really understand kind of how the platform worked. So myself and like the rest of the CRM team, we knew what we'd be using and what data would be available and how it kind of all came together. So we worked really closely with the Exponia team and we produced a tracking document which all synced into our customer journey. So we went through the process, like Jamie said before, mapping out that customer journey. We overlaid onto it what our objectives were and what was kind of our in scope with what we wanted to achieve. And then it was like, right, this is the data structure, and don't be kind of put off by that. It's logical, it's organized, it's straightforward, and very much relates to how you can use that information within a campaign activity as well. And it was really important to get the end users involved in that initial process to fill in this tracking document, which becomes your data dictionary of everything, all the events, so the different behaviors that your customer undertakes, they're all tracked as events. And then you have the attributes, which kind of allow you to pull through and allow the personalization right at the beginning. And having that understanding and then going through all the training that you get and the masses of support, everybody's on the same page, as kind of corny a saying as it is, but you understand how it's gone together, so therefore you understand how you will use it. Because having gone through a number of these migrations in the past, the biggest issue that I've seen is when I've not been involved in that understanding up front, because then as an end user you get something that you've made a lot of assumptions, whereas things that you would see as a campaign user you might not necessarily see from a developmental perspective, because you never do each other's kind of jobs. But you need to be able to work together, both have an understanding to kind of put together that tracking document that, I say, becomes like the living, breathing piece of work that you all share that common understanding. Exponia can go off and do their bits, and then you say, right, this is more appropriate for our IT team to be able to do it, as in Sofology's, or right, Exponia, this is better for you to be able to do that, and then the campaign layer sits on top. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the important part is that first step, it's with every customer. So yes, we might decide as part of that discussion that some part sits with the client, but that fundamental mapping of what are we trying to do with this platform, where is the data, how does that need to be structured, that's a requirement for every customer, because that's the only way you can really get value out of a platform like that.
That's great. Thank you both. Next question. How do you create loyalty in a product that's very much seasonal and a single purchase? And the example given here is travel insurance, and that's a single purchase in the sense that the customer will actively find the cheapest price on a comparison site. So how do you go from that one-off purchase to a relationship of loyalty? Jamie, do you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. That's a really tough question. So, but what I would say is, let's look at hotels or something like that. It's the same. A lot of those products are sold through aggregator websites. And very often the first thing that you're looking at, or even airlines, it's the same. You're looking at the price first, and then you start to look at, okay, well, what is the detail of that product? So one of the key things that can really help is to build that initial direct contact with the customer. So with Hilton, what they did is they give some small benefits for actually downloading their app or going direct. With Hilton, it's about 2% discount on the purchase price. So you should check it here to be able to really compare the prices. And just by actually having that direct contact, you can start to then bring the benefits of your product over what else is in the market. If there's already an existing experience with that brand, you're much more likely to read the details if you've had a good experience. But it's really tough. What I would say is focus on how can I build a direct relationship with that customer versus going through an aggregator and removing that first step of, we talked about it before, this paralysis of decision, right? If you can be one or two options rather than one of 1,000, you're much more likely to be considered. And I think if you look at something like insurance or even birthday cards or something like this, so I buy all my birthday cards online and I get a reminder that, okay, every year it's Father's Day or whatever. And if you can identify purchase patterns and behaviors or when people are coming to the website, so through a cookie or something like this, you can start to understand what is the purchase cycle of that customer and make relevant offers and personalized offers, or make the, let's say, the experience more tailored to that customer.
That's great. Thank you. That's very useful. Nicola, any thoughts on that? You sell something that, as you said, you don't sell very often.
Yeah, certainly. I was actually going to bring out some experience from mymoneysupermarket.com, where that was selling car insurance, so some would say very exciting area. But then also from a holiday experience on the beach as well. So these were items that somebody could essentially buy just based on price. It's the same products. They're not really excited in travel insurance or car insurance. They just need to get something that is not going to let them down. So I would say look at what else matters to your customers. Look at it from a product point of view, and look at it from a service perspective as well. So simply by finding out and assessing why did your customers choose you, and then pick out those features and use that in your communications. Use those messages across all of your channels, be consistent, and particularly with insurance, it's about when things go wrong. So be open, be transparent, say find out what matters to them. So it could be something as in being able to get in contact for free if abroad, free phone, no hidden costs. And then also what we've seen is encouraging positive presence across channels where your customers are. So if that's Facebook, for example, if there's any negative sentiment there, monitor that negative sentiment and make sure you sort it out. Every time a customer gets in touch with you, you have the opportunity to leave them with a positive experience, and people will remember how you made them feel much more than the price. So that's what I would do.
Brilliant. That's great. Then one final question, and this I think is for you, Jamie. Exponia, apart from email, how many channels do you support campaigns on? And does this include Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and WeChat?
Absolutely. So we kind of call ourselves data agnostic. And even if it's something like Facebook, we can help to build lookalike audiences and things like this. So we can look at who are the types of customers who are on the website, who are, let's say, valuable customers to us, the right kind of customer to us. And we can actually build that as an export, which we can bring into Facebook to start to either exclude certain types of customers who we say are not good, or actually find lookalike audiences. There are too many use cases to run through now, but what I would say is definitely omni-channel is something we're really strong in. And as part of any kind of discussions, this is what we would focus on. So what are the important channels to you? What is the goal that you're trying to drive through that channel? And we'll agree together how we can best deliver on that goal, whether it's conversion, whether it's customer acquisition, whatever it is. But yes, absolutely, we can cover multiple channels.
That's great. And that very neatly brings us to the end of our Q&A session and the end of our time today. So I'd like to finish up now by thanking our speakers, Nicola Cottrell, Head of CRM at Sofology, Jamie O'Gorman, Director of Client Services, and Robert Hegger, Inbound Content Specialist at Exponia. Thanks too to you, our listeners, for tuning in today and for your questions. As always, we'll follow up by an email with a link to the on-demand webinar, which you can listen again to at your convenience. So thank you all once again for taking part in this webinar, and goodbye.